time I think আগেরবার এত এক্সাইটেড হয়ে গেছিলাম, এবছর ইনিয়াস ভালো কাজ করবে ভেবেছিলাম। ইটস লাইক নাইটমেয়ার, the lack of options, lack of plans. ইংল্যান্ড মেক্সিকো উইল টাচ আপন দ্যাট অলসো, ছোট করে। ব্রাজিল নরওয়েটা হাইলাইট। ইংল্যান্ড মেক্সিকোয়ে হ্যারিকেন যা খেলছে, ইংল্যান্ড আই ডোন্ট থিঙ্ক উইল হ্যাভ আ প্রবলেম। কিছু বলা যায় না, ওয়ার্ল্ড কাপে কেপ ভার্ডে যা খেললো। 2 মিনিটস। অফিস আর এটা একসাথে কাভার করতে খুব খুব স্ট্রেসফুল হচ্ছে। মাঝখানে আমি প্রথমে শুরু করেছিলাম প্রায় প্রত্যেক দিনই ভিডিও করা, বা 1-2 দিন অন্তর অন্তর। লিটারালি দিস ইজ প্রবাবলি 2 weeks in a row where I am doing a video exactly on Sundays. যে সময় পাচ্ছি না তাছাড়া। অ্যান্ড থিং ইজ, এত ফুটবল আছে, পিপল আর অ্যাকচুয়ালি গেটিং বোর্ড। মানে আগের শনিবার যেমন একটা ফাঁকা স্লট ছিল, আমি ভাবলাম কিছু ডিসকাস করবো, রাউন্ড অফ 6, পুরো গ্রুপ স্টেজের এটা ডিসকাস করবো বা সামথিং অফ দ্যাট সর্ট। বাট জাস্ট দেখলাম ট্র্যাকশন নেই কোনো, পিপল আর ডু নট ওয়ান্ট টু ওয়াচ ফুটবল অ্যাট দিস পয়েন্ট অফ টাইম, দিস সো মাচ ফুটবল। হ্যাঁ, এভরিবাডি ইজ মিল্কিং দিস। যারা রেগুলার কন্টেন্ট ক্রিয়েটার তারাও, মানে নন ফুটবল বেস, তারাও এটা করছে। আশা করি একটু সিজনটা শুরু হলে আই উইল প্রবাবলি গেট ব্যাক সাম, একটু লেভারেজ পাবো। বিকজ আমি যদি আজকে ব্রাজিল নরওয়ে না করি, টুমরো ইটস জাস্ট হিস্ট্রি। আমি সারা উইক ধরে এই জিনিসটা নিয়ে কথা বলতে পারবো না। সিজন শুরু হলে তাও গেটস একটু, যাই হোক, স্টার্ট করছি 12। ঠিক আছে।
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Netflix Football HD. It's been a while since I posted my last video. Do not blame my manager. They are always trying to give me the upper hand about doing content and stuff. But jokes aside, Brazil versus Norway, is this Brazil's first major hurdle? Brazil have had quite a few ups and downs in this entire World Cup, and also England also face Mexico as well. We'll be talking about in the later half of the video. But tonight, welcoming back a familiar face on the screen, Ovikda. How have you been? How has the past 4 years been for you? And like, too much football this World Cup?
Hi Neil, happy to be back. Um,
Pleasure.
4 years, 4 years. As you know, it's been a tough ride with Indian football, given where it is now. But for me personally, a lot of work done on that front. But yeah, for the past month, I've been able to catch up on some football, and there's a lot of it, and it requires us to sacrifice a lot, stay awake. Wife's not too happy about it. She was not too happy about it in the beginning, but now she joins me to watch the games. If you can't beat me, then join me. So yeah, it's good actually. I pick and choose games to watch at night, and then at least there's a routine set where you're looking forward to something every
Yeah.
day. And I think this is a World Cup where there have been so many shocks and so many teams defying the odds and producing
Mm-hmm.
displays that I think will be spoken about for a fair bit. So I think it's been an interesting World Cup in that way. With the number of teams being increased this year, it definitely has given a chance for some of the teams to be more ambitious and show the whole world what their country actually represents in
Mm-hmm.
terms of their football philosophy. So very interesting World Cup it has been to watch so far.
And for people who don't know, Obigda is the CEO of Kerala Blasters. And when I knew him, he was working for a different ISL club. And he's such a magnanimous personality. I've had the opportunity to sit with him, talk with him, and he views football in such a way that is definitely inspiring. And I think Mrs. Chatterjee also agrees with that right now, I hope. Jokes aside, we'll have a segment of Indian football. Well, I'll reach out to and ask you about things, but right now the focus is on the World Cup. You mentioned a lot of teams in the vein of Cabo Verde who were almost within a splinter of actually doing the unimaginable, like knocking out Argentina, the current World Cup holders, and it deserves respect. And in a similar vein, Norway, they have not been in a World Cup for a long, long time. Erling Haaland, very characteristic. Like if you talk about presence, yeah. So it's like Gareth Bale carrying Wales. If you remember the 2016 Euros, and how like we all talk about Erling Haaland, he's in the top scorer race, and but more often than not, the rest of the teams get shadowed. But tonight against Brazil, they are under no pressure at all. Maybe a bit, but they are playing. They're playing the Viking way. They're playing with the chests out. Do you think that this is not going to be as easy? It was never going to be easy for Brazil, but do you think this is not? This is going to be a competitive one, run around the veins that we have watched around through the World Cup this campaign?
See, I feel Brazil is a work of luxury in progress, as I would say. Given the embarrassment of riches that they have at their disposal in terms of the talent on the pitch, I think on paper they would win against most teams in the World Cup. But then also again, Brazil has been a team that in the last few editions of the World Cup has sort of fallen off its perch a bit. And they are a country that prides themselves on being, what Real Madrid is to the Champions League, Brazil is to the
Yeah.
World Cup, right? It's you can draw that analogy, and for them, it's a tournament that they are desperate to do well in every time they play. But obviously, I think given that the last few editions have been so disappointing for them, uh, it's taken a coach like Carlo Ancelotti to come in and do of his magic in terms of man management. You can see the impact he's had on the team is more so if you watch the second half against Japan, where he put some confidence back into a team, made them calmer, made a few changes,
Mm-hmm.
and in the end, his tactic of bombarding Japan with crosses and forcing them to defend deep paid off for both the goals. So that sort of more than bringing his tactical nous on board, I think he's brought the sort of man management that Brazil desperately needed, given the galaxy of stars that they have at their disposal, and it's served them well so far. And in Norway, I feel Norway are. I think it's one big Boy Scout camp for them. They've come to
Mm-hmm.
this World Cup to enjoy themselves. You can see they're playing without a lot of pressure. And I feel that coach Sol Bakken has been. I think the only place where I would disagree with him was when he rested the entire team against France, and then got beaten. Maybe it has served him well in the next knockout game, but I always feel that a team needs to maintain winning momentum throughout the World Cup.
Correct.
But then, obviously, I'm not the coach, and they got through in the next round. So, but they've been playing with the sort of freedom and a sort of complementary um, symbiosis that is complementing their first appearance in the World Cup after many years. And then the one fact that I don't think many people know is that Norway has met Brazil 4 times in the past and has never lost to them.
Ah,
So um,
one for
um,
the statisticians.
yeah, so I think it's going to be an interesting game. I don't think you can call this in any way. The only fear I have for Norway is while they are very good going forward and very good in terms of progressing the ball from midfield. I don't think their defense is as good as Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that is where I'm most scared for them. When you have players like Winnie Jr. in full form, and you have players like Gumaresh and Cunha, who are sort of, with every game adding more confidence to what they're doing. Bruno Gumaresh, for me, again, underrated performer in the World Cup
Unsung
so
hero.
far. Unsung hero. So I think there lies the challenge for Norway. I don't think they're going to keep a clean sheet. Um, if they do, it'll require a Herculean effort, but they have the capability of outscoring the other team. That's where the
Yeah.
fun lies, right? And I think it's going to be as tough as Brazil makes it for themselves. If they are able to be clinical, I think they will do well. But where I feel, Brazil might struggle in this game is to contain, Norway's attacking fluidity, which has been causing teams a lot of problems. Um, Especially with the fact that if you see the role Haaland is playing in this team, he's under no pressure to drop deep in midfield, pick the ball up. He's always on the periphery. And the example was
Right.
in the last game where, the commentators were saying, he's been hardly involved, he hasn't had a touch of the ball, and then he gets the decisive goal because he's on the shoulder of the last man. His job is just to score goals. There is no pressure on Haaland to link up play at all. So he's not at all dropping into pockets, dropping deep. He's always in front of goal, in the 6 yard box, in and around the box. That's where one of the most lethal strikers in the World Cup should be, and he's there. So and also there are a lot of players within the Norway team who've also shown us that they're not to be sort of
As for
how would I
instance,
say,
Nusa, right?
underestimated.
We have seen
Yeah,
how
yeah,
Nusa was amazing. So like he's one of the wingers like I was talking about
yeah.
with Anshuman Dada on the other day where Nusa I reckon he would be a like we are having this United podcast and instead of going for Crescencio Somerville or like maybe someone else, Nusa is some budget option who actually wants to play for the badge and someone who is very technical. And before I actually talk about Nusa, you extremely well touched upon how Brazil has been tactically Don Carlo being that man manager, but also people actually rule out how much of a tactical presence he brings. Gabriel Martinelli coming on in the second half, he was played as a Mezzala. For people who don't know Mezzala, if you remember Di Maria of 2014 Champions League, finally played there as a Mezzala, as an attacking box-to-box midfielder, especially what Ancelotti himself played in his Milan days. Now, the brilliance of that was that allowed Vini Jr. to completely play with freedom because he did not have the role of having the width and also tracking back, and he actually like burst onto the scene and almost scored the goal of the tournament. Bloody hell, what a brilliant run. And
Yeah.
I'll bring you, before I go to you, I'll bring you the lineup. Thank you, Rohan, for providing me that. So Alisson starts in goal, Danilo, Marquinhos, Gabriel, and Douglas Santos in defense. Casemiro, Bruno Guimaraes, as always, in midfield. Ryan starts out wide, Vinícius Jr., Cunha, and Gabriel Martinelli. We've seen Ancelotti maintain that same structure, but Martinelli actually starts tonight instead of a Lucas Paqueta. I don't know if there's any injury scare, but him always been we've seen Martinelli always being played as a winger. We've never seen being him like played as a number 10 or a wide attacking midfielder, let alone a Mezzala. Do you think this is something that has actually changed the dynamics for Brazil, helping them to break low blocks to as per like not low blocks essentially. I've not seen Japan was already attacking in the first half, but to attack with more pressure and to give Vini that room.
I think if you look at the last game that Brazil played, I think apart from what you mentioned, I think it's something which even for me in my time in football, a lot of the coaches say sometimes it's about executing the basics well, right? And in case
Correct.
of that game, you could see that Japan were pressing Brazil well, recovering the ball in areas, and the transition was hurting Brazil in the first half. And the goal that Japan scored was a classic example of that. And the one thing that Japan lacked, I thought, was aerial prowess and the ability to defend crosses. It's not rocket science. And the second half, they made an adjustment where Ancelotti told his wingers and his fullbacks, okay, at the first opportunity you get, put the ball in the box. And he's told his midfielders and his strikers to arrive in the box, which did not happen at all in the first half. I'm sure if you look at the statistics of the number of crosses in the second half versus the number of crosses in the first half, where Brazil was trying to play through Japan, and it was getting really difficult because Japan were very compact. There was no
Mhm.
space in between the lines. They were almost a 5-4-1 at times. And when you don't have space in between the lines, there's often no space for the Brazilian midfielders to occupy half space and receive the ball behind the midfield, which was not at all happening in the first half. In the second half, what he did is, okay, let me stop playing through you. I'm going to go wide and I'm going to put balls in the box
Stretch the defense entirely and cause mayhem.
and stretch the defense entirely. And when you have someone like Casemiro who's so good, And if you're giving him, 5 shots on target, right? There's one header that's going on target, and that's exactly how they achieved it. And once they scored that first goal, I think Japan was caught in two minds. Should we go for the second, or should we just sit back, defend, and take the game, as far as possible? And when you try and do that, and when you drop against a team like Brazil, and when you're giving midfielders like
Pressure.
Guimarães and Cunha space in front, and all the time in the world to pick after Brazil recovered the ball, and Guimarães all the time in the world to spot Martinelli, and they did not close him down. They dropped deeper and deeper, and the goal came because they were caught in two minds, whether to go for it or whether to to try and take the game as far as they could. And as a result of that, Brazil won, but Japan pushed them all the way. The first half I thought was the best any side has ever played against Brazil. But
Mhm.
then again, every team has a chink in their armor, and Ancelotti, a veteran of multiple trophies, he's spotted that. He was very calm. The way I remember when they scored the winning goal, the coolest man in the stadium, not no reaction. So
How do you not celebrate that?
um,
You've been on the pitch side. Like, how do you not
yeah,
celebrate that? Come on.
I I think because I think he's somebody who does not let his emotion get the best of him, which for me, if Ancelotti goes on to win the World Cup, right, I think
Fingers
he would be
crossed.
the greatest greatest manager of all time, undisputedly. Because what else does he need to win? Multiple Champions Leagues. He's won the league in Italy. He's won the league in England. He's won the league in Spain, the top three leagues in the world. What else does he? And if he wins
Germany
the
as
World
well.
Cup
Don't
with
discount
Brazil,
Bayern Munich. Come on.
yeah. He's won the league in Germany. There you go. And what else does he need to become the greatest manager of all time? For me, if he achieves it, and so and it would be a fitting way for him to sort of also close out his career with a World Cup. So um, I mean, like you look at him and you are. And there can be no doubts he's one of the greatest managers in the history of the sport.
Agreed, absolutely. So Don Carlo is Don Carlo. We all know what Don Carlo is capable of. But I have a few complaints against him because for once, like, there's always the football fan inside you that wants to dominate matches. And if you and I both have seen, like, of course you have seen football at a much closer level, but generally it's not just swaying with what people see in highlights. When actually watching matches, finding out spaces, off the ball runs, what like concerns me very much is that Ancelotti knows that a Bruno Guimaraes and a Casemiro are the exact copy of both are the same holding midfield players. They do not essentially complement each other. And what further worries me is that the first half, as you described against Japan were running rings around the Brazil midfield. Like, it was like just watching Man United in the Premier League, where there is no pressure in midfield. Everyone just sits back. Nobody is making the runs inside because they, like, I've seen this trend, right, where people do not press. So teams, I've seen teams, I've spoken about that in the previous podcast, where Brazil or any other team presses in the final third, to gain that transition. Midfield, they let loose. They just do not. They just sit back and cover those spaces and expect that we'll cover up loose balls and we'll pick up, and then they go for the final tackle. What happened was when Keiichi Sano won that ball, so Casemiro could not touch him. He was already on a yellow card. He knew he was beaten for space. There was no communication with Gabriel. Like, you take the ball, or the left back was nowhere to be seen. Lucas Paqueta was nowhere to be seen, and I do not want to hate watch on Lucas Paqueta, but a Gabriel Martinelli, he at least brings the legs in midfield. That is where I'm most impressed about. And tonight, you have a Martin Odegaard who will float in that pitch, who will exploit those spaces. Like Brazil want to exploit those half spaces, Odegaard will exploit those half spaces because Casemiro and Bruno Guimaraes are not covering much in midfield. That is what I feel. And then we have seen this time and again. Erling Haaland, if you stop the supply line, you can even put a Luke Shaw to defend him. Like, I've seen this multiple time in derbies, wherever we have come across victors, not much. But Odegaard and Erling Haaland, that link-up play, do you expect a Casemiro and a Bruno Guimaraes to be actually sufficient? Or are you expecting Ancelotti to cook up a Park Ji-sung on a Pirlo kind of a situation, or Ander Herrera or an Eden Hazard? Would we see him marking Odegaard all the way through?
I don't think Norway's tactic to win today would be to dominate the midfield. I think the game's out wide for Norway because if you look at them, like you mentioned, you've got Antonio Nusa on one side, and don't forget Alexander Solot on the other side, who I thought had a fantastic last game. Um, and both of them usually, when we talk about attacking fullbacks, we're talking about overlaps. But if you have a look at the goal, the goal that Norway scored, it was an underlap
Correct.
actually, with the wingers staying wide, the fullback making the run, ahead of the sort of winger who stayed wide. And Oscar Bob at that moment, who's another fantastic talent who has the ability to change games. I feel if you look at Brazil, if you look at their players out wide, I would have to say Norway are more threatening out wide in this game. Where I feel actually Norway will suffer is again their sort of final third,
Hmm.
their defense line. I don't think Norway are to be discounted in any way out wide. I remember against France, even when they played their B team, and France Dembele scored, and then I think 30 seconds later, Norway, you could see it stitch together a movement from out wide to in, and scored in 30 seconds with their B team. That philosophy runs through that team pretty well. And when you've got two wingers in form like Musa, you've got Sarlot, you've got Oscar Bob, and for me the most important presence for midfield for Norway has actually not been Odegaard. For me, it's been Patrick Berg, who's added more drive in midfield. What that has done is it's allowed Odegaard to stay in a position where he does not have to be the father of the entire midfield and try and drop every time, pick the ball up from the centre backs. He does not have that pressure on him. I think Patrick Berg is again another unsung hero for Norway. He's somebody who said, who's telling Odegaard basically stay up front and do your job.
Hmm.
You don't need to drop deep, pick up the ball and try and force play, which is something which caused Norway a lot of issues because every time Odegaard was dropping to receive the ball, it was leaving the there was a it was leaving a big hole between the forward line and the midfield, which when in certain phases of the game. So I think Norway will stick to its sort of strong point, which is get the ball out wide, and they have wingers who can do a bit of everything. Hit an early cross, come inside, even come inside like an Oscar Bob. Try and link up with a third man run from midfield,
Hmm.
and also they have the ability to go to the byline and put the ball into the box. So they will be up against somebody in Brazil's defense who's again been very good, and I think people forget how good he's been. It's Danilo. Again, he's a guy who does not attract attention, but for me, he's been one of the best fullbacks in the World Cup so far. So they will be against pretty decent fullbacks. But I feel for Brazil, I feel they're just too much quality from you. You spoke about like you spoke about Casemiro and the legs in midfield and sometimes getting over. Which team in this World Cup, apart from say France, would you say has a bit of everything in midfield? You name one team for me.
France are a bloody anomaly. So I was having this discussion with my roommate. France, like I do not, I've gone back 30 years trying to search for a squad
Yeah,
as good as that. I have not even found. So Brazil
yeah,
2002, it was just R9 and
yeah,
Rivaldo, Ronaldinho coming through. There was Lucio. We call that a dream squad. Where do you put this
yeah,
France squad? They have everything.
yeah. I think it's their World Cup to lose. If I'm being honest, it's like I think only France can beat themselves. It's as simple. I thought yesterday in Paraguay tried their best to be as brutal as possible, physically disrupt their game,
Mhm.
play, all sorts of mind games. But then I
Yeah,
think France showed a very different side to their game yesterday. And those are the sort of games you need to win the World Cup, right? And they've just laid down the gauntlet. I think more than all the goals they've scored against the other teams, I think that was a game which showed that, okay, even in the
they
most
can
adverse
grind out results,
situations,
right?
we can grind out a 1-0 win, right? And anyway, coming back to this, I feel again, man, I feel Brazil should be left to their sort of tune, because I think Brazil is it plays the best when there's no pressure on them to conform. and that's sort of what Carlo is in a nutshell. I think he's the sort of manager who understands. You see the moment Casemiro gave away the goal against Japan,
Mm.
and he was on a yellow card. Most managers in that situation in halftime is like, shit, Japan's pressing me. I need to take this guy off. He's going to get another yellow. He leaves Casemiro on, and who gets the equalizing goal?
Casemiro. Fantastic, yeah.
So that's the roll of the dice. I think sometimes in this game we try and analyze it a bit too crudely in the sense that we're talking and football, Neil. I'll tell you, the thing that people don't maybe realize is that why is the World Cup so tight? It's because with the advent of technology, with the advent of AI, with the advent of all this computing tech and information and video that you have, the teams are just, I think, 70 to 80% more prepared than they would have ever been in their lifetime. And secondly, I hate to say it, but football has become less of how would I say, nowadays you're seeing players with flair sort of diminish, right? It's a bit robotic, and
Yeah,
when I say robotic, it's in the sense that every player in the team has a specific role, and the number one role is everybody needs to run, right? There are no prisoners apart from Cristiano, who is the only player, and Messi, possibly the only two players enjoying that sort of freedom. But apart from them, every player in the team has to run. You need to work hard. If you're a fullback, you need to go up, you need to come back. If you're a winger, you need to come back and help your fullback out. If you're a midfielder, you need to drop in and cover space when
correct.
you are facing a transition. If you're a striker, you need to go and press and be that first line of defense. So football has become so much more endurance based, and players are able to cover so much more ground and add so much more to their defensive side. It, in a way, sort of levels the playing field, because the players with individual quality, you will hardly see such players existing. You might have a Vinicius Jr. or an Michael Olise. But then if you go back to the 90s, you look at the Brazil team, and 70% of them can beat a man, on a standing dribble. You
Mm.
look at France, similar. You look at teams like England also, back in the day when they actually won the World Cup, right? You had players with flair who were able to create moments of magic, made make crowds stand on their feet. But it's less so. It's all about set pieces. How can you gain an advantage in set pieces? Something that Arsenal showed the world last season, right? How do you gain advantage in a scenario where players are so talented, and you need to be physically adept against them by closing space down, not allowing them to run behind you. When you're able to track back and cover ground, even if somebody's got a lead on you, it has become really scientific, and teams are much better prepared given the amount of data and the amount of insight and the amount of people working on that data, right? It just
Correct.
prepares teams better. So the playing field, I'm not saying is completely leveled, but all of this gives you a chance to level it if you're able to execute what your philosophy is. So apart from all of this, I think the advent of technology and data is not to be underestimated, and which is why a lot of teams like Cape Verde, can
Mm.
go out against Argentina and go toe to toe with them for 120 minutes. It's actually not because the players are better than Argentina or the players are as good as Argentina. No, it's because they know their roles. They understand how Argentina plays. They know what the limitations of players are. They know when to press. They know when to drop out. They know when to defend. Their coach has prepared them well. Then, of course, small details like individual talent of Lionel Messi, or the quality of a set piece, those things you cannot like cover with data, right? That's your individual ability.
Correct.
So that those moments are deciding games, right? For the big teams. So I feel that's something which a lot of people are not talking about. Everybody speaks, this team has shown so much heart, that team has shown so much heart, but you also need to complement the backroom staff and the people working behind the scenes who are able to prep the teams in this way when they're coming up against and
The
football has
big
gone very
hitters.
left field. It's gone left field, Neil. You look at a Luis Enrique who's almost operating like a American football coach, right? This tactic of kicking long,
Yeah,
from the kickoff, and trying to sort of pin them on one side with the throw in and recover the ball. Have you ever seen this before in the entire existence of football? And it is just
never have
because,
I ever seen someone kick away the ball when they're having a
yeah,
kickoff and losing possession. But
correct.
he's
So,
won
and you're
it.
doing it, no, and you're doing it because there is data that shows you that in 10 instances when a team is taking a throw in their own half, maybe there is a chance for you to recover the ball high up the pitch on 6 occasions and then, progress, right? So that he's doing it basis data. So football just becomes so much more, technology, data, AI. And now AI is also doing all sorts of crazy things, which we can talk about in another day.
Mhm.
But it is just giving you an advantage to close the gap. Even if your team has superior players, your opponent has superior players, it's giving an opportunity to close the gap by recognizing such patterns, by recognizing such moments, or by recognizing such pieces of information that can help you inflict damage, whether it is from a set piece, whether it is understanding your opponent's trends and weaknesses over the last 50 games he's played. It is much more simpler to do that now with AI. You know, it
Scary.
would have taken hundreds of manual hours, man hours in the past. So that's where football's headed, and the World Cup is a prime example of that.
Scary stuff, and very like I'm very lucky to actually have it broken down by you in such simplest instance. Of course, we'll have another podcast where you talk about how AI is ruining or improving football. As we'll have that debate later on. But coming on back to the match, you touched upon Alexander Sorloth, a striker primarily. We've seen that for Atletico, we've seen that for Sociedad, and he's basically just another target man. And where I feared, like Haaland, you already have a target man for Norway. Then again, Sorloth, who's never played that much as a right winger, is not a winger. He just loves playing back to goal and just loves getting end of crosses. We've seen that, especially if you remember Sorloth coming up into the highlight reels against Barcelona, just finishing off a counter attack or heading in, holding the defender for others, making that run. And what Solbakken has done brilliantly well is whenever they are playing, I've not seen them playing as much long ball, but whenever they're playing long balls and not targeting it to Haaland, they're actually targeting it to Sorloth so that he can make that knockdown. The second balls are being won, and as you very well mentioned, that PSG kicking out the ball for a throw in that position, Sorloth actually gives that width so that Ryerson, playing for Borussia Dortmund, very energetic fullback, linked to Man United, but I do not want to go to Man United. He's actually been doing those underlapping runs because a lot of the defense gets attracted towards Sorloth and trying to outwin the header, which they cannot because of his physical presence. Something Brazil will have to contend with, because I don't know how Douglas Santos will fare against in a physical battle with Sorloth. With pace, he'll definitely have the gun, but physicality is something which is a question. And Odegaard being in that pocket to receive that second ball, and the trend of the modern football is that we've seen crosses not from the bylines, but from exactly that right-sided half space, where the in-swinging balls are much difficult for the keepers to actually, they're caught in two minds. Should I go out? Is this ball spinning behind? Is this ball coming in deep? And that causes defenders havoc as well. Casemiro's goal is a prime example where the cross actually floated over the goalkeeper and he could not judge it. Tonight, do we see actually for like, this is just a gamble. This is me just thinking things and like laying it on for like, if this is going to happen, I do not know. Maybe we can see in some transitions that Haaland and Sorloth playing off each other and Ryerson being that winger to actually have the three at the backs. Maybe Sander Berge will drop deep. He's done that for Fulham. Do you think that this is just a gamble on the top of my head? Always lovely picking your brains.
No, I think his role is completely free because he has been given the license to drift inside and become a second striker in the penalty box when they decide to play through the middle or when they are kicking long in certain instances, right? So that um, and I think one of the important things that happens when you have two such, and if you, like you said, the balls are not being kicked to Haaland, right? He's not under that pressure to do that. When you've got players like when you've got somebody like a Sorloth who's able to win these balls, and then you've got players like Nusa around you, what you would want to do is have your more and if you notice, whenever they're doing this, they have their best players in and around the strikers, because when you're able to pick up the ball in such spaces, if you remember Nusa's goal against
Senegal.
Ivory Coast, if you
Not
remember, the
Senegal.
one where he
Yeah, Ivory Coast. Yeah, correct.
Ivory Coast, yeah, when he bent it in, and terrific goal. So you've got one of the reasons that you're using Solot is also because you want to leave Haaland free for the second action. Because I think if you notice, he's always almost on the shoulder of the last man. And he's if you actually watch his videos, it's pretty funny. He's just walking around. It's very funny. It's very funny to watch him. There are like he doesn't go and press that much, nor does he come back and try to when the ball's with Odegaard or when the ball's in
Play a
midfield. He
1-2
doesn't
in
even
between.
try and he does not. He's just walking like of the last man, and which is why if he becomes the target man, right, it's more difficult for him, or not more difficult, it will take him more time to then spin off and then try and reach the box. They want him completely free. So the moment the ball's off to Sorloth, who becomes a second striker, Haaland's on his bike. He's not waiting around for combinations, right? And he is waiting in the box for either Nusa or Soloth, or he's waiting for an Oscar Bob, or a third man run. So I think his job has been simplified. Solbakken told him, you're the best finisher in this team, the best poacher in this team. Concentrate on being in the box. Be on the shoulder of the last man. To allow us to play you through. Do not bother with trying to win balls. Do not bother with combination play. And it sometimes makes things so much more easier for a player of his stature because all he's doing is waiting for that one moment in the game, and his one moment in the game is what will decide the game, right? He does not need 50 involvements when he can score you one goal with one chance, right? So it's a bit of a slight gamble which they take when you're leaving a player so uninvolved in play, but it has borne them fruit so far. And maybe for a player like Haaland also, it gives him a very clear picture of what he's supposed to do. So again, this is not a bad thing, right? If this was to happen in the Premier League by game 7 or 6, you get picked apart because people understand how you're playing. But since the World Cup is such a short duration, you're changing stadiums, you're playing different teams, you're playing in different environments. Sometimes the best thing to do is to hold on to what's working for you. And it's just 7 or 8 games, right? So you need to be repetitive with what's working for you. Had this been a longer league, I think maybe you run into trouble by the seventh or eighth or ninth game where people figure you out. But
Mhm.
when it's working for you, don't you think you should just stick with it?
Yeah, Vigda is having some internet issues. Yeah, you're back. Yeah, what's working for you is always always complementary. We've seen time and again how winning combinations are built, and Don Carlo is an example of that. Solbakken is actually trying to impose his things. That it's a very interesting. If when I think about it, so if you're a midfielder playing in Norway, so one you can hit a long pass, expecting the right winger Solot to take it down, beat not beat their man, but beat their man physically and have second balls around, allowing Odegaard with his favored left foot to put in an in-swinging cross. But then again, there's speedster in Nusa who's tricky, who'll come inside, who'll go outside, and who'll score and who has the ability to score and assist as well. Seen that time and again, time and again, time and again. But when I come into Brazil, the defense line, Danilo, as you said, underrated. He's not one of the flashiest fullbacks in the World Cup this time, but he does his job. Marquinhos, excellent leader of that defense, done time and again for PSG. Past 2 seasons, holding Champions League winner, and he's certainly come of an age to where we saw what he was at the last World Cup, especially playing under Luis Enrique and winning the Champions Leagues does wonders for you in that team. And although he's not that tall in stature, but he makes sure that his presence is known. Coming on to Gabriel Magalhaes, now there's controversy, and I love it when there's controversy. So him and Haaland, we know what's going on between them. The whole world knows what's going on between them. And while I say that they are not going to go at it, I can bet you, I don't know, whatever this is, I can bet you anything that they are going to clash. They're going to like you cannot like the Viking mentality. You cannot keep away it very long from Haaland. No matter how much he has been poised to keep calm, he's a different animal on the pitch. And now set pieces, if I see the height factor, Norway is a cut above. Haaland is there, Sorloth is there, Sanderberg, a 6'5" midfielder. I do not see that height in Brazil. Casemiro excellent in the air in both boxes. Gabriel always he's the reason Arsenal won the league, scoring so many corners this term. What else? I cannot see. So Igor Thiago, he's been chalked off. Set pieces you mentioned will be prime for Brazil as well. But what on the other side? Are Norway trying to force set pieces tonight? Would they play a mental game? And how important is Gabriel versus Haaland? Because I think like Haaland does not shy away from a chance. He remembers stuff. If you remember the "Be Humble" quote, right? He just waited till the end of the season to say that again. And is this something that is going to give us a moment? Not especially Zidane Materazzi, but close. Do you reckon?
See, I think, like you said, they are the sort of tallest team in the World Cup, if you have to put it that way. Along with Bosnia, they are the joint tallest team in the league, in the tournament,
Mm-hmm.
and they will always have that sort of aerial dominance. But then, um, and they've scored 2 goals from set piece situations. Now I don't know whether they were. I don't recollect whether they were corners or from wide free kicks, etc. But I also feel that Brazil is a side that defends extremely well. You have to understand that being tall is not always being, doesn't always count. You've got people who understand which zone the ball is coming into, and Brazil has got plenty of sort of players to deal with. And I'm not too worried about that. What I'm worried about is, like you said, Haaland and Martinelli and Gabriel occupying each other, which leaves a player like Nusa, if he for all of Marquinhos's strengths and for the wonderful player he is, I don't see him to be that adept when it's played behind him. I think he struggles with pace. I think he reads the game extremely well as long as it's in front of him, you
Right.
know. And as long as he is able to touch the forward and he also uses his physicality surprisingly to very good effect. But sometimes when it's played behind him, he struggles for pace. And in occasions or on occasions, if Nusa is able to occupy the half space between Danilo and Marquinhos, I think it's going to be a problem for Brazil. And the funny thing will be, I don't think Brazil are going to play that deep. So it's going to be really fun because, like you said, with Haaland being on the shoulder of the last man, it is inevitable he will be up against Gabriel. And if Gabriel's attention is focused on Haaland, I think today Marquinhos is going to have an issue. So, which is why I expect a coach like Ancelotti to be drilling this into Gabriel's head: play the occasion, don't play the man. Our job is to go through the next round. To the next round, our job is not for you to win a personal battle with Haaland. Does not matter. Does not matter whether he wins, you wins. At the end of the day, we need to go through to the next round. And Gabriel needs to keep his head because he's a great defender. There's no doubting about it.
Mhm.
Doubting that. So, if he's able to keep his wits about him, and Haaland in this World Cup, like you said, if you're able to cut service to him, right? If you're able to crowd midfield out, and if you're able to stop supply into the box, he is not somebody who would score you a goal out of nowhere like a Harry Kane.
Mhm.
Haaland is only a threat as long as he's got service and as long as you've got people to feed him balls to run behind. Right, that's
Correct.
when he's dangerous. But Harry Kane is the sort of striker who, you put the ball into the box, he'll score you a goal. You give him the ball at the edge of the box, inside the box, outside the box.
Incredible
The
passing
most
range and
complete.
vision as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Incredible
everything.
passing range.
So the most complete striker in the World Cup for me, right? But I think Haaland, I won't say he's unidimensional because he's a fabulous goal scorer, right? There's no doubting that. So I feel today it is a question of how switched on Gabriel is to play the game, don't play the man. And for Marquinhos, I think he would face a test here because I think he's, like I said, if Brazil are going to play the way I feel they will play, they will try and be on the front foot, which will leave space behind for Norway.
Correct.
And I think that's where That's where they will have to be so good as a unit. Like I said, I'm not at all worried about. I'm not worried about Brazil's ability to score goals. I'm just worried about today Norway's ability to outscore them. Norway are not the best defense in this World Cup. They will concede goals for sure, but they, in a game like this where they will be motivated, and when you play Brazil, everybody's motivated. Everybody puts their best foot forward. So it has the, without sounding cliched, I think it has the ability. This game can see Norway getting drubbed completely because they have the ability. I feel their defense is if they are not able to recover from a shock, if Brazil gives them an early shock, I think it's going to be a long hard game for them. But if they're able to stay in the game, I think they can break Brazil's heart.
And
Norway are not going to run away with this, but there can be a moment where they can break Brazil's heart. But if I look at it logically and if I look at it on paper and all the evidence so far, Brazil should edge this game. But then, you can, because all the good teams in this World Cup have found a way to beat these enthusiastic teams. They found a
Mhm.
way, right? France found a way, Argentina found a way, England found a way,
Difficult, very
Spain found a
difficultly
way.
found a way.
Very difficult, but they found a way because at the end of the day, you have those players to make the difference,
It's
right?
always the
You
first
can
goal
be
that matters,
as,
actually.
yeah.
Whoever puts that first foot forward, that's what depends the
No,
outcome of the match.
no.
Okay.
It is who scores the last goal that matters in
The
this World Cup. I
Michael Owen
think
is
that,
very happy with that statement. Just one
yeah,
thing,
because
one thing off the bat. I'll just cut you off there. Sorry for that. So we talked about, missed this when we were talking about Gabriel Martinelli playing. So Paqueta, his role in defense, whenever there was a defensive action that required, Paqueta was always that man playing in front of Gabriel, so that Gabriel did not go out of position. And we've seen how much Alessandro Martinez pushes into midfield and is capable of playing those passes. Gabriel as well, not of the poise of Alessandro Martinez, but has that ability to break those lines in midfield and play those passes forward. With the Martinelli, you would not expect him to play in front of Gabriel, or to occupy those pockets. His primary job is to stretch and to stop Ryerson from bombing forward, so that the battle is restricted between Douglas Santos and Osorda. Just, it's not 2v1. But that's what worries me, because I mentioned that there's less of legs in the Brazilian midfield, Casemiro or a Bruno Guimaraes. You essentially need a third midfielder to drop. I do not know how Cunha would play if he would drop that deep, so to allow so that actually leaves just Vini up front, and Norway will not leave that much space in behind. They know that their only attacking outlet is Vini. Is Gabriel Martinelli, while being that trump card for Ancelotti's Brazil the other night, him not being able to contribute other than running and closing space, being that person who just stays in midfield, we've seen Paqueta do that, getting the ball off of Gabriel and then playing it across to maintain that tempo alongside a Bruno Guimaraes and a Casemiro. Is this something that Norway would look to counter?
yeah, this definitely would. And when we speak about Paqueta, it's a weird thing, but there have been two players in this World Cup, Paqueta for one and Vitinha the other in Portugal. And a lot of people say, that, oh, they are useful because they circulate the ball. They are meant to circulate the ball. For me, I feel they've been very disappointing so far for me, because for Portugal, if you look at Portugal also as an example, I think they've been abysmal in midfield. For the embarrassment of riches they have, Bruno Fernandes is the only player in that team who can break lines. And a Vitinha is not meant to circulate the ball with 100% success ratio sideways, and it has, and I think it eventually might even cost Portugal going forward. And the same with Brazil. The only advantage that Brazil have is there are players willing to take risks, right?
Right.
A Casemiro, although people might not realize it, but Casemiro takes risks with the ball and he tries to play forward. Casemiro is not your average defensive midfielder who will pass it to the fullback and pass it to the center back, and then when the number 10 drops, he will give the ball to the number 10 and say, okay, please, can you do something for me? He takes risk. What he lacks with his legs, he makes up for it by being a pest in the opposition box. And I think he tries to break lines, right? You're trying to play forward. I think that's a big difference in intent. But all the same, like you said, I feel if here is a game which I think is going to be won here in midfield and not. If you look at it in terms of energy, if you look at it in terms of legs, Brazil don't have the legs, which means there might be a double pivot in midfield where, okay, if Casemiro is the one going forward, you've got Guimaraes dropping, trying to give balance,
Mhm.
or or you would have the both of them sort of sitting, like a double pivot, trying to give each other balance and also trying to ensure that they are not being played through or behind, right? You
So the,
might see
just to
Brazil
say,
being compact. Yeah.
this actually leaves me with one thought, is that whenever I've seen Brazil the entire tournament, I've seen Casemiro making that third man run to make the box number in the box. So that negates Brazil's armory in terms of whenever they're whipping in crosses. Even against Japan in the first half, it was not Guimaraes who was making the runs forward. It was Casemiro. And you had Paqueta actually sitting deep, covering that white space and covering that. So he was a lot horizontal instead of vertical. Martinelli tonight is vertical. So a lot of question marks, don't you think?
Because you're not going to win this game through crosses, Neil, against a team that is very adept at defending crosses. You cannot do to Norway what you did to Japan, because Norway are excellent in the air. They're going to it's like, I don't know if you remember that game when United played Fulham with 100+ crosses into the box with and they scored zero at the end of the game, right? You cannot do that to a team and they almost want you to do that. If I am Norway, I would want you to cross. I would want you to cross the ball into the box and I would take my chances with it. You're going to beat Norway by maybe playing how you tried to play against Japan in the first half. Because the problem with Norway is trying to cut off spaces. The problem with Norway is trying to track third man runs. The problem with Norway is fullbacks who are okay but not great at defending players of the caliber of Vinícius Jr, who would, I think, be really up for it tonight. And I won't be surprised if he scores or assists. I feel it's a game for Vinny Jr. today. You're not going to play into Norway's hands by doing what you did against Japan by going out wide and crossing. Their centre backs and full backs will just sit and say, "Okay, come cross." We are happy to have that all day long. That's It's not a game for that, which is why I don't think it's that important. I think today it's about Cunha, it's about Vinny Jr., it's about Guimaraes and Casemiro just going up to support the attack and taking the odd risk every once in a while. It's about Martinelli trying to, be on the shoulder of the last man on some occasions, while also dropping into midfield to ensure that Norway is not able to numerically outnumber them. So it's a game for Brazil to express skill today. Skill is going to beat brawn today. I don't think you can do what you tried to do against Japan, because it will just be playing into the hands of Norway, who want a physical altercation in this game. They have the tools to do that. And that's not what you want to give them. If you want to make it like that, I think it's going to be tough. But again, Ancelotti is smart, Brazil smart, hopefully. And they sort of realize what their strengths are in this game, and they should be able to use it to good effect.
One thing, honestly, I looked in the last game. If you looked at Martinelli's goal from a different angle, you would have seen Vini Jr. nowhere in the scene in the camera. Nobody expected a Martinelli to pop up in that position. Nobody expected Bruno Guimaraes to be on the edge of the box. And that's what the magic is about. So Vini being that main man also takes away defenders. Everybody is watching, okay, the next pass is going probably to Vinny, because he is going to score that wonder goal. He is going to make that wonder pass. He's going to make that shot creating action. He's going to be the one assisting. Nobody saw Martinelli. Nobody expected Bruno Guimaraes to make a through pass with his left foot. Martinelli, everybody was just watching, okay, so where is that pass going? And suddenly the ball is in the back of the net. So I think it would be, we would not be shocked if we see Vinny actually providing the width, and Martinelli, instead of being the one covering for Vinny, he would often pop into the box trying to outsmart, and then probably Vinny would come in. We've not spoken about Cunha. His inclusion in the starting 11 from the second match. If he does not make that tackle in the second match, Vinny does not get the second headed goal. And that's the work rate that he's done. So people are always complain that Cunha is never going to be a world class footballer because he's more of a team player. But if he does not make that tackle, if he does not show that desire, he's a one with immense quality. Brazil will be found. Brazil more or less got found out in the first match because they could not press. They did not press. They wanted the opposition and they wanted to hit on transitions. Cunha allowed that because, like, we've seen him in Leipzig, we've seen him in Atletico, two of the best pressing teams, and he's come into Wolves, then at United, and we've seen the work rate that he's put in. And he's also someone who's maverick, who plays with the heart on his sleeve. Tonight, I feel that Cunha would have a Harry Kane role. He'd not drop as much deep, leave all the running in behind, running in those gaps to Martinelli, Vini, Martinelli, and Cunha combining, and probably I think we'll see a goal from that situation. Norway, more as like Dada mentioned, they try to play to their strengths. Soldoth, Nusa, and then Haaland just laughing on the match, trying to get off, being in an offside position, what Henri spoke about brilliantly in one of his podcasts, just not being marked, and then suddenly the ball is in the back of the net. Before we let you go, I just want to talk about England a bit. England face Mexico at 5:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time, and I think my manager is not going to be happy if I watch that match. But England has been decent. There have been small shouts about Tuchel's like squad selection, lack of a number 10, someone who can change the game. But someone who can change the game is Harry Kane, and he's done that excellently. If he cannot score from inside the box, and like, how much quality do you have to make that shot with back to goal, that power, when already everybody was saving everything, that goalkeeper was saving everything? Harry Kane just pops up and decides to do that. Do you think England, Dada, has, if Harry Kane can be Harry Kane for, like, he's always been Harry Kane, like if he continues that run of form and England start playing off of him, do you think England is going to have a deeper tournament than Brazil, who eventually might be the pairing in the quarterfinal?
It's going to be difficult for England, but I, I am, I sometimes laugh at the English fans because they are just, I don't know. I think they get paid for criticizing. I remember when, and I remember all these experts, right? And I think when England was playing their last game, I remember a moment where the game's tied, right? England's come back into the game, and there the commentators start off in, oh, if you had Cole Palmer here, oh, are you saying that a Foden could not have made a difference in this moment? And then actually you find out how good a manager Tuchel is when he decides to drop Declan Rice at right back for to give him an opportunity to combine, and it is his involvement that then leads to the goal. It is his decision to then put on Anthony Gordon, because I felt that Rashford was, I think, done by that time, and he had nothing more to give. At that moment, you needed somebody like a Gordon who I feel is limited in what he does, but the two things he always does is he works hard and he's always looking to put the ball into the box. Right? These are the two things that he will do for you,
He's very
regardless of.
intelligent at that.
He's intelligent. He's not as skilled as Rashford, so he will give you an average 6.5 out of 10 every game, right? And he's got this ability to work really hard, which I feel is important. So with all the changes that he made, if you see the second goal, all of his changes were involved in that
Yeah.
goal, right? If you look at Declan Rice combining, I think Saka came on that side. I
Yeah,
think
Saka.
in that moment, that's they combine. Then there is a combination that sees the ball. Go out to Gordon, and then when the ball comes into the box, then that's when you have Harry Kane doing it, and then obviously the second goal is absolutely
World
mind
class.
blowing. It's world class. There's no word for it. Just to he never even looked up at goal, and that is the that is a sign of a striker in the form of his life. The last 2 seasons for Bayern and what he's been able to do. I mean, like,
When has
you
Harry
have to
Kane
put some
not been
respect on
informed?
his name.
When has Harry Kane not been
No,
informed?
No, I think when you're playing at a team like Bayern with so many good players around you and you're winning trophies, that makes a difference. Like, okay, Harry Kane was always good. Nobody's ever doubting the fact that Harry Kane was a bad player. But then that that sort of leap to become the talisman of your team, to produce moments like that when your team needs it all on your own, is great players playing in great teams winning big trophies, right? So
Agreed.
and that's always been the hallmark of the top players. If you look at them, they're always in teams that are challenging for titles, winning titles. And when you're able to win titles, it just broadens your shoulders that extra bit, because you know what it takes to win, you know what it means to perform in high pressure situations, because you're in a team where you need to perform week in and week out, because there's somebody else waiting to take your spot. So I think Harry's the best decision he took was to go to Bayern Munich. And the best decision he will make, in my opinion, is to stay at Bayern Munich and not go to Barcelona. So, which I think he won't do. But for him to take that step, and then you can see he's relishing the role of being the main man. He's not shied away from it. Him and Bellingham, who I think, again, Bellingham is a guy who's got confidence that belies his years, and the two of them are like, okay, we are here, we're going to try and change the game. You can see that, and in the responsibility that they take. So you've got a coach like Tuchel, who in that one moment in that game, the second hydration break, that worked so much to England's favor, because he was able to get the message across. He was able to make the changes, and those changes worked. And when those changes work, the coach looks like a genius, which, and then you have to give him credit. If it doesn't work, everybody's out to sort of, in one game they're like, he's the best thing that England have, no more Southgate, passive coach, blah blah, Tuchel's great. Then
But
in the middle
honestly,
of the
do
game
you
is like, how can
support?
you not take
But honestly, do you
yeah, yeah,
support
go on.
him not taking Cole Palmer or Phil Foden? So they could have made the squad at least. Trent, I understand.
There is But there is a reason. No, you're so at the end of the day, you and me are sitting here talking on a podcast. He's managing England, right? Earning millions of dollars. There is a there is some reason, right? I don't think he's foolish enough to exclude two very good players. There might so At the end of the day, if England does not make it far, right? Today, if they fall to Mexico, everybody's going to be asking him that question, and he'll have to justify. As long as he keeps winning games, and as long as
Nobody
he
is
keeps
asking him.
proving that we have no right to ask him. So the next time he fails, we can ask him. But as long as he's winning, you have to believe in the coach who's sort of thought and he must have known that this is going to be it's going to be a decision which so many people are going to be critical about. So he's had the balls to take that decision. So now let's see how far it takes him.
Yeah, fair credit to him. So Thomas Tuchel always in the spotlight for, like, we've seen how he fares at Chelsea. He could be a strike of genius, but sometimes a coach's syndrome of often like overthinking too much has let coaches down. And we'll the jury is out, as Abhik said. We fans, we always love to debate. We always love to speak. That's the beauty of football that we have. And I think predictions time. It's been an hour has flown by. Literally an hour has flown by. Prediction time. I do think Brazil, Norway. So it's all the World Cup games. I'm just scratching my head. So I speak about the tactical battles, but I do not have a prediction per se. I'll let you have a go at it first. Brazil, Norway.
I think I'll stick my neck out and say Brazil to win it 2-1 or 3-2. I feel
It's
for me.
it's, it's a high
But
scoring
then
match.
it's a high scoring match, and they're going there'll be goals in the game, and then whenever I make my predictions, it'll just be that Norway will take the game into extra time or something like that. But I'll stick my neck out and say Brazil are going to win this. So
I have this stupid feeling in my stomach that it's gonna be a 0-0 and the game is going to be decided in extra time. And I do not have good feelings whenever Brazil go into extra time. But maybe Don Carlo, something's different. Well, I think the game will mostly depend upon how Gabriel Martinelli is being used tonight. Is he going to be covering spaces, or is he going to be the main goal threat? I think that covers pretty much how the game is going to go. Odegaard, if you can stop him, stop that space. We spoke about that. It is going to be, it might be an all-timer classic, or it might be a snooze fest. About England, Mexico are high flying. We do not discount Mexico, right? They've been one of the best nations, host nations.
I possibly feel it's going to go into extra time, and then I don't want to predict what happens, because somehow I would want England to go through, but I simply cannot, for some reason, discount Mexico in that stadium. It's a hell of a stadium to play in. It's going to be so tough with the home crowd behind Mexico, and England will need everything in their locker. I feel this is the most difficult game. If people thought the last game was the most difficult game, it's only going to get tough from here. And I think if you want to prove your credentials as a team that's going to end up in the final four, these are the sort of games you need to win. So I don't want to put a prediction on it simply because I don't have enough confidence in either team to make a prediction. I feel it's going to be and Mexico have shown, I don't think Mexico have conceded a goal so far,
Nope,
or
nope,
have they?
nope.
Exactly. So I feel it's going to be, it might go into extra time, and then I don't know, whoever has the sort of quality and the mental fortitude, Mexico buoyed on by their fans, or if Harry Kane and or Bellingham decide to step up and show their class, yeah, I feel it's it. This game is both teams I feel have equal chances, and I won't discount Mexico. I'm not going to discount Mexico at all. So if England walk away from this game with a lead of more than 2 goals or 3 goals, and they win this 2 or 3 goals, I think you need to then look at England making it to the final four,
Serious
for
contenders.
sure, because it will take a hell of a performance to beat Mexico today.
I'll give you a statistic. Raul Jimenez has scored the most goals as an individual player against Jordan Pickford. How does that come in? Like, just before
No,
you
yeah.
go on.
No. I mean, like I said, that's what I mean to say. I think today it'll be difficult, and then you've got Mexico, who, like I said, kept uh, you know 4 clean sheets now. I do feel that England will, especially with the back line. I know Tuchel has put his trust in young players, but then in these games you will then find out what their character actually is, because there were some wobbles in the last game against Congo, and
Mhm.
and I think those will be exploited more today. You would need a flawless performance from England, whether that's getting a gritty 1-0 win or being clinical in front of goal, which I have no doubt if Kane gets his chances, he will do it. But for him to do that, they will have to break down a very motivated Mexico side who've been flying, and people are not putting too much attention on them because the attention has gone to the Congos and the Cape Verdes and the Paraguays. But let me tell you, they are one of the biggest underdogs so far, even more so than Norway, I would say.
And playing at the Azteca, as you mentioned, it's like the height, the factors, are not playing in a full crowded stadium. And let's not discount the Mexicans at all costs, because they are going to be turning up with all guns blazing. And call me stupid if you will, but I have this funny feeling. I have this funny feeling that England will probably see England's best performance tonight, because England has always been unpredictable. When you expect them to play well, they just vanish, and when you expect them to be under pressure, they come around 5. I do expect England to have a 2-0 advantage going into half time. The changes would make, so Tuchel, we've seen, if like he tries to overcomplicate things. I feel that this is going to be a 2-2. Brazil, I feel it's an 0-0. At the total contrary to what you said, I think England Mexico is going to be a 2-2. Then Bhagwan Bharose for the half post 90 minutes for both the teams. Avigda, it's been a pleasure having you in after so long. It's been like we've not even had the chance to keep touch. We're busy building our lives into this conjuncture, and it's lovely that football brings us together. I'd hope to have you on so people who don't know or people who don't remember, he's a United fan as well. So the season starting, we're just before this session started, we're just talking about transfers and the frustration. So the preseason start in a few weeks. I hope to see you then talking about transfers and the failings of Ineos and the again perpetual doom and gloom about Manchester United. But lovely to have you back. So missed you, man.
Thanks, Neil, for having me. Always good to be back, like you said, and all the best for the game. Hopefully, you're still wearing your jersey by the end of it. So.
Like I was wearing the Japan jersey all throughout, but ups to Japan for what they did. But hopefully the 5 stars come onto the pitch tonight, not just on the crest. Vigda, thank you so much. I hope have a wonderful rest of the evening. Say hi to Mrs. Chatterjee, or as we Bengali say it, say hi to Bodhi for me. I've not yet got a chance to speak to her, but maybe she forgives you for staying up tonight. Two fantastic games. Thank you, Dada. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks. Yeah.
So that was Obikda with all his might and glory, with talking about how life has been for all both of us. And we're going to have an exciting match. Stay tuned to Netflix Football for more coverage, more expertise. Like, you do not get a CEO from Kerala Blasters every day, do you? I know if he's still there, he's probably laughing at me, but he's always been an inspiration and an influence in my life coming on to, and it's always taught me how to see through games, and it's always been there for me. And I hope tonight you are going to be in front of your TVs sticking their eyes out, because Indian subcontinent, your work culture is not saving you. And I'll not talk much more. The match is getting pretty much exciting. It always is, going into the close end of the stages. The predictions are out. Do subscribe to Netflix Football. If you're new to the channel, do leave a like on the video. And tomorrow, I do not know what match is on tomorrow. I'll have to finish my work. But tomorrow, we are definitely having a podcast. So stay tuned in the comment section. With that, this is Neil, hoping that you have a classic tonight to witness in the form of Brazil and Norway. And then, if you're still awake, England, Mexico, to actually get you on to that Monday blues. Stay tuned, and we'll see you tomorrow soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
অনেক অনেক রাত হয়ে গেল, খাওয়া দাওয়া করেছো? এমনি এমনি কেমন লাগছে, মানে আই হ্যাভ শিফটেড ফ্রম লাইক দ্য ভার্চুয়াল স্ক্রিন থিং টু হ্যাভিং আ ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড অ্যারাউন্ড মি, সো এনি থটস, ইনপুটস? না, আই ডোন্ট স্টিল ডোন্ট হ্যাভ আ ক্যামেরা, আমি পুরোনো ফোনের ক্যামেরাটা ইউজ করেই করছি। তো ওয়ান্স প্রবাবলি দিস হিটস 5K or 6K সাবস, প্রবাবলি দেন আইল ইনভেস্ট অন আ ক্যামেরা। তো ওরমভাবেই রোড ম্যাপটা ফিক্স করেছি। আমি অ্যাকচুয়ালি টাইমটা দিতে পারছি না, আই হ্যাভ টু বি, তখন যখন করতাম আই ডিড নট হ্যাভ এনিথিং, আই ইউজ টু ডু 3 podcasts a day, নাও ইটস 1 podcast a week। সো ওই ইনস্টাগ্রামের অ্যালগোরিদম বা ইউটিউবের একটা ডেড চ্যানেলের অ্যালগোরিদম পুরোটা আবার ফিরিয়ে আনা ইজ আ লট ডিফিকাল্ট দ্যান হ্যাভিং আ নিউজ, বাট স্টিল দেখা যাক কিরমভাবে কি করা যায়। তোমার সাপোর্ট লাগবে, একটু শেয়ার টেয়ার করে দিও। আর গেট মি 1 or 2 স্পেশাল এখনো কিন্তু আমি ওড়িশার এফসি জার্সিটা পেলাম না, 4 বছর হয়ে গেল, এখনো জার্সিটা আমি পেলাম না, ক্লাবটা চলে গেল, তুমি নেই, এখনো জার্সি পেলাম না আমি। বাট গেট মি আ স্কার্ফ, আই ওয়ান্ট, মানে এখানে সাজিয়েছি যতটা সম্ভব, গেট মি আ স্কার্ফ নেক্সট টাইম। ঠিক আছে, চলো একটা ইউনাইটেডের পডকাস্ট নেক্সট করবার। আর তোমার সাথেই এই ওয়ার্ল্ড কাপটা শেষ হোক, তখন এই ভ্যাকিউমটাতে এআই তোমার জার্নি অ্যাজ লাইক ফ্রম, ইফ ইউ ক্যান স্পিক অ্যাবাউট ওড়িশা, তো ওড়িশা থেকে তোমার জার্নি অ্যাবাউট টু কেরালা, অর উইল জাস্ট লিভ দ্যাট আননেমড, বাট ওয়ান্ট, মানে তোমাকেও আমি একটু পোর্ট্রে করতে চাই ওই জায়গাটাতে, টু দিস সাইড অফ ইউ। ঠিক, ঠিক আছে, চলো।